assumption is profoundly wrong. I'm sorry to say. Taking into consideration the seriousness of the game, our temperament should not sound like random thunder going off in a faraway horizon. It should sound united and forceful, with a clear sense of purpose. I read that in Sweden, they throw car bombs quietly. But then again, the Swedish-Iranian poet Athena Farhad is very angry. She wrote a poem called Europe. It was performed at the international festival Days in Wine. It was published all over the globe. And I agree with Athena. I really do. I don't want Europe to turn like an avocado going bad before it's ripe. Shame and embarrassment. Embarrassment and shame. Europe can do better. Africa can do better. Asia can do better. North and South America can also do better. In Antarctica, 50,000 people visited a year. Still, damage is being done by us. It's not politically correct to live in Europe. I know that for quite some time now. But I haven't really found another alternative. I'm not saying at all, I'm not trying to underestimate Europe. Its cruelty is beyond grasp. But Athena Farhad, I'm wondering, are you planning to write a poem to the other 7 continents as well? That would be to decolonialize something, wouldn't it? In my opinion, all the time we have been practicing being human in the system of the patriarchate, a system which has existed for about 7,000 years. Humanity has been soaked in a dark oppression and deep exploration. 3,000 years ago, Moses led the Israelis out of Egypt across the Red Sea. In Africa, they exercised slavery before the Atlantic trade. In Asia, the Japanese, the Mongolians. My point is, it's definitely not, as I said, to underestimate the atrocity of the West. My point is that humans feast on power and greed. We have traveled the world, you and I. We have read the books, we have read the newspapers, we know the drama within ourselves, our families, workplaces. The shit hits the fan over and over again. I personally, though, still have faith, probably due to a strategy of keeping my sanity. Like strategy is having children, just like having to fight for your environment is a strategy. Moral is a strategy. Racism is a strategy. Everything can be said to be a strategy. The question is, what will bring us to the next level? When will reason and enlightenment erect? A place where adjectives as subtle sensibility can describe the Department of Foreign Affairs. Will a robot save us? Will you allow your brain to evolve? Would you let technology enter your DNA and withdraw your culture of war, greed, and hunger for power? Well, it seems to be a trend in quoting Winston Churchill, like this event. History will be kind to me if I intend to perform. It's one of those quotes, ironically. I represent a movement called Green Hijab Movement. The title, I will put on my green textile now. This is a hijab. And our movement has another of Winston Churchill's quotes. You might know it. Never let a good crisis go to waste. So I'm going to read a little bit from my script here now. Green Hijab movement uses the momentum of the Anthropocene while breeding one wicked problem after the other. Because all of our 7 continents have something in common. We are the coexistence, breathing the same air, swim in the same ocean. The consequences of our actions or lack of will affect us all. It's surprisingly quiet. Our climate situation has to be solved within the next election. And you better use the chance you have been fighting for tomorrow and vote for a long-term sustainable politics. I'm just saying, but it's more than just my opinion. Because the urgency of the situation, within this urgency, beholds an opportunity. So, a little bit more about my movement. I'm not the only one, but I'm representing it tonight. It opposes capitalistic structures that are linked to the entrenched power of colonization and institutionalized prejudice that separates people. This color and this textile beholds a model of dismantling and replacing the destructive patterns. Our intent is to use the climate crisis to overcome the patterns of entrenched powers of the past by asking one simple question. Who is benefiting on dividing segregated groups? And when you start to think about it, it's quite simple. It's not any minority groups, that's for sure. I believe in determinant as a method of resistance. That is why I'm wearing the hijab. Our movement displays one of the strongest symbols of our time. The hijab has 2 symbolic meanings. One, the original religious meaning, where hijab is a protection against external force, like God, the sexual gaze of men, and the holy proceeding of everyday life. The second symbolic meaning is a denial of the first. Here, in the contemporary Europe, the hijab is a negative symbolic meaning, signifying oppression of women And this second symbolic meaning occurs as a hijack of the original symbol by the people belonging to the right-wing politic on one side, and contradictory, you can find feminists. These two symbolic values are opposed and much often monumentally stable. They divide public opinion into two opposable agendas. Either you are for one of these versions or you are for the other. Indifference seems impossible. If you don't choose sides, are you then supporting the fundamentalistic Islamic version? Green Hijab movement proposes a determinant of this deadlock by appropriating the hijab for a totally different purpose, by postulating a new, different symbolic meaning of this textile. We attempt to break the established opposition of symbolic value. In our movement, wearing the green hijab symbolizes global solidarity with the victims of climate change and an engagement in the momentum of change of society. Because pollution knows no borders, and the effect of the crisis will hit hard. Far away from where the climate crisis is produced. Climate change especially affects women from the global south, the same women that to a large extent wear the hijab. Scandinavia has, since the 60s, shown several examples of social integrity and gender equality. Within this context, this fact gives Scandinavia a possibility to brand geopolitical care with a clear sense of purpose and cleverness in all its complexity. Either we let us pulverize by the neoliberals with a growing sensation of lack of trust and a lack of logic, or we choose a different path. So, let's start to talk each other up, be proud and preach a standard. Either we let us be eaten up, or we don't. In a couple of hours, we enter election day in Sweden, said to be the most dramatic election in Swedish history. So I will end not by turning my back on you, but I will say, vote with a clear sense of purpose, vote for a long-term sustainable politics, vote for global care. That was the end of my speech. The rest of my performance is about finding the energy to pursue. So I want us to dance, because we need this energy. My name is Gitte Saetre, and I'm a member of Green Hijab movement. If you want to become a part of the movement, the hijabs are here. If you just want to be a part of this ontological dance, you're also very welcome.
But what is for men?
Men wear hijabs in my movement.
Men also.
Everybody. Climate is for everybody.
Yes! I agree with you.
We need you all. We need men, we need everybody.
Yes!
Okay, are you ready?